The common depiction shows a Klingon warship as a theater of chaos. Warriors brawl in corridors. Commanders rule through intimidation. Every decision is settled with violence or the threat of it. The image is deliberate. It sells the fiction that Klingon ships are powered by raw aggression and individual strength. But canon reveals something very different. Life aboard a Klingon warship is not chaos. It is regulated. It is observed. It is psychologically compressed. The system does not run on spontaneous combat. It runs on enforced loyalty, collective surveillance, and the constant production of compliance through shame. Honor is not the reward for excellence. It is the mechanism that keeps the crew obedient when strength alone would tear the structure apart. The Klingon Defense Force is not a meritocracy where the strongest rise. It is a military hierarchy engineered to prevent dissent while appearing to celebrate combat prowess. The design of daily life aboard these vessels reflects a state that fears its own warriors more than it fears external threats. The question is not whether Klingon honor exists. The question is what work it performs in a closed system where personal autonomy is actively suppressed. The surface story frames Klingon ships as autonomous war machines commanded by proud leaders who answer only to glory. The deeper mechanism shows a surveillance state in motion. Every action is visible. Every hesitation is recorded. Every challenge to authority must be ritualized to prevent actual mutiny. The ship does not celebrate the warrior. It produces the warrior by eliminating every other role a Klingon might occupy. And that production begins the moment a Klingon boards the ship. The official function of a Klingon warship is offensive power projection. The vessel exists to strike, occupy, or threaten. Its design prioritizes weapons, warp speed, and crew endurance under combat conditions. The Bird of Prey and the Warship-class cruiser both reflect this doctrine: minimal automation, dense crew packing, redundant manual systems that allow battle damage to be repaired by hand during engagement. The layout is optimized for survivability in extended conflict, not comfort. Quarters are small. Privacy is limited. Shared spaces are communal and visible. The ship is built to keep its crew compressed, physically and socially, so that hierarchy is always reinforced by proximity. This is not accidental. Federation starships separate crew into specialized departments with individual quarters, recreational areas, and scheduled downtime. Klingon ships reject that model. The lack of personal space is structural. It ensures that no crew member can isolate themselves from the group. Isolation allows independent thought. Independent thought allows the formation of private loyalties. Private loyalties weaken collective obedience. The ship denies isolation by design, and that denial is presented as warrior culture. But culture does not explain what happens when the ship is not in combat. The majority of time aboard a Klingon warship is spent in transit, maintenance, or readiness drills. Combat is rare. Patrol routes are long. The crew is awake, armed, and confined together for months. In that environment, boredom is a threat. Frustration is a threat. Resentment is a threat. The ship cannot allow those pressures to build without release, but it also cannot allow uncontrolled violence to destabilize command. The solution is ritual. Klingon ships formalize aggression into structured contests: sparring, bat'leth training, pain rituals, strength competitions. These events are scheduled, observed, and contained. They provide an outlet for physical dominance displays while preventing actual mutiny. The crew is allowed to fight, but only in ways that reinforce hierarchy rather than challenge it. A subordinate can prove strength in a sanctioned match, but that proof does not grant them command. It grants them visibility within the existing order. The ritual transforms combat from a destabilizing force into a loyalty signal. On screen, we see this repeatedly. In Star Trek: The Next Generation, Worf participates in holodeck combat scenarios that mirror Klingon training structures. In Deep Space Nine, Klingon warriors on the station engage in public contests that are watched, judged, and referenced later in dialogue. The competition is never private, it is always witnessed. The witnessing is the point. A Klingon proves honor not by winning in secret, but by winning in front of others who can verify the victory and spread the story. Honor becomes social currency, and social currency requires an audience. This is how the ship replaces privacy with performance. The Klingon command structure aboard a warship is vertical and absolute. The captain holds total authority. The first officer serves as enforcer and potential successor. Below them, department heads control weapons, engineering, and tactical operations. Rank is visible. Insignia, sashes, and seating positions all broadcast hierarchy. Orders are expected to be followed immediately. Hesitation is read as weakness. Weakness is read as disloyalty. Disloyalty invites challenge. But the system does not actually encourage challenge. It ritualizes challenge to make it survivable for the command structure. A subordinate who believes the captain is unfit cannot simply attack. They must invoke a formal right. In Reunion from the Next Generation, we see the right of succession used to transfer power after a leader's death. In Deep Space Nine's Soldiers of the Empire, the tension between a captain and his crew is resolved not through mutiny, but through a structured confrontation that restores command legitimacy. The formalization prevents chaos, but it also prevents reform. If a captain is incompetent, but still follows ritual correctly, the system protects them. If a subordinate is correct in their assessment, but violates protocol, the system destroys them. The result is a command environment where authority is defended by procedure, not merit. The ship requires the appearance of meritocracy to maintain morale, but it cannot allow true meritocracy without risking constant leadership turnover. The compromise is a system where challenges are permitted but tightly controlled, and where most challenges are discouraged through social cost before they ever reach the ritual stage. And that social cost is enforced by the crew itself. Klingon warships operate on collective accountability. If one crew member fails, the entire unit is shamed. If a section underperforms, the entire section is punished. This creates a distributed surveillance network where every warrior monitors their peers. A mistake is not just a personal failure, it is a group contamination. The crew learns to correct each other before the command staff notices. They learn to suppress individual deviation to protect the collective reputation. This transforms the crew into an enforcement mechanism that operates independently of formal authority. In Soldiers of the Empire, the crew of the IKS Rotaran is demoralized after a series of losses. Their shame is collective. They do not blame their captain individually. They absorb the failure as a shared condition. When General Martok takes command, he does not restore morale through individualized praise. He restores it by giving the crew a collective victory. The win is shared. The shame is erased as a group. The system does not reward personal excellence. It rewards group cohesion. The individual is valuable only insofar as they contribute to the unit's honor score. This creates a self-regulating culture where deviation is punished before it reaches command. A crew member who questions orders too loudly will be corrected by their peers, not because they are wrong, but because their behavior threatens the group's standing. The ship does not need a political officer. It has a crew trained to enforce conformity on each other. The mechanism is efficient. It is also totalizing. There is no private dissent. There is no room to question doctrine without risking social exile. The warrior is free to fight, but only in ways the system has already approved. And that freedom is a fabrication. The Klingon ideal celebrates the independent warrior. Songs and stories lionize heroes who defy corrupt leaders and restore honor through personal strength. But the structure of the warship makes that independence impossible. The hero must challenge through ritual. The hero must win in public. The hero must be witnessed and verified by others. There is no lone wolf. There is no quiet rebellion. The system forces every act of defiance into a visible, formalized structure that the state can control. The myth of the independent warrior serves to motivate compliance, not to enable actual autonomy. In Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, Chancellor Gorkon attempts to reform the Empire by pursuing peace with the Federation. He is assassinated by Klingons who view peace as betrayal. The conspirators frame Kirk and McCoy to sabotage the talks. The plot is elaborate, involving multiple ships and high-ranking officers. It succeeds not because the conspirators are uniquely powerful, but because they operate within a system that already prioritizes group loyalty over individual judgment. The officers involved do not question the conspiracy because questioning would isolate them from their peers. The system punished Gorkon for deviating from doctrine, and it used loyal warriors to do it. This is the cost of collective accountability. It prevents reform. Dissent becomes treason. Innovation becomes dishonor. The ship and the state become self-reinforcing structures where the only acceptable change is the change that confirms existing values. The warrior is told they are free to challenge, but the structure ensures that most challenges reinforce the system rather than transform it, and the ship enforces this through exhaustion. Klingon warships operate on a readiness culture that demands constant availability. Crew members are expected to respond immediately to alerts, regardless of rest cycles. There is no formal downtime. Sleep is taken in shifts, but those shifts can be interrupted. Drills are unannounced. Combat can begin at any moment. The crew is conditioned to live in a permanent state of near activation. This prevents complacency, but it also prevents reflection. A crew member who is always tired, always alert, always one step from combat, has no energy left for internal questioning. The exhaustion becomes a compliance tool. In Deep Space Nine's The Way of the Warrior, the Klingon fleet mobilizes rapidly in response to perceived Dominion infiltration. The speed of the mobilization is treated as a sign of strength, but it also reveals the baseline state of the fleet. These ships were already primed. Their crews were already conditioned to launch without hesitation. The readiness is built into the routine. The cost is that the crew has no capacity to evaluate the legitimacy of the mission. They are too tired and too conditioned to question. They launch because the system has trained them to launch. This is how the ship weaponizes fatigue. The crew is kept in a state where obedience is easier than analysis. The commander does not need to justify orders because the crew does not have the cognitive space to demand justification. The system runs on reflex, and reflex is trained through repetition and exhaustion. The warrior is told they are always ready for glory. The truth is they are always too tired to resist. The deeper question is whether this system is stable. Klingon warships have a documented history of internal conflict. Mutinies occur, coups occur, commanders are killed by their subordinates. The system is designed to prevent this, but it does not always succeed. The question is why? If the surveillance is total, if the rituals are formalized, if the exhaustion is constant, why does the structure still fracture? The answer lies in the system's core contradiction. The ship requires warriors to be strong enough to fight external enemies, but not strong enough to challenge internal authority. It requires them to be loyal enough to follow orders, but aggressive enough to terrify opponents. It requires them to value honor above life, but to obey commanders who may act dishonorably. These demands are incompatible. The system manages the contradiction through ritual and surveillance, but it cannot eliminate it. The pressure builds. The mechanisms contain it most of the time, but not always. In Redemption from the Next Generation, the Klingon Empire fractures into civil war. Houses split, ships choose sides, crews follow their house leaders rather than the High Council. The fracture reveals that loyalty to the state is conditional. When the system's contradictions become too severe, the crew's real loyalty is to their house, their family, their immediate commander. The ship's surveillance and ritual cannot override blood ties. The state knows this. That is why the system works so hard to prevent the contradictions from becoming visible. It cannot resolve them. It can only delay the breaking point, and the delay requires constant work. Discipline aboard a Klingon warship is enforced through visible punishment. Failures are not handled privately. They are addressed in front of the crew. A subordinate who makes a mistake is reprimanded publicly. A warrior who challenges incorrectly is humiliated publicly. The punishment is not just the consequence, it is the display. The crew watches. The crew learns. The crew internalizes the lesson without needing to be told directly. The message is clear. Deviation has a cost. The cost is social. The cost is immediate. The cost is permanent. In Deep Space Nine, Worf serves aboard a Klingon vessel temporarily. He witnesses the enforcement of discipline firsthand. The corrections are harsh. They are loud. They are designed to be remembered. The commander does not pull the offending crew member aside. He corrects them in the center of the bridge, in front of their peers. The humiliation is the deterrent. The memory of the humiliation prevents future deviation. The system does not need to punish constantly. It only needs to punish visibly enough that the threat is always present. This creates an environment where fear is as functional as honor. The crew is told to seek glory, but they are controlled through shame. The honor system is motivational. The shame system is operational. The ship runs on the tension between the two. The crew strives for honor to escape shame. The system grants just enough honor to keep them striving, but never enough to make them secure. The warrior is always one mistake away from humiliation. That proximity keeps them obedient. But the system also creates a secondary problem. If shame is the primary control mechanism, then the crew must believe that honor is achievable. If honor becomes unattainable, shame loses its power. The system must provide opportunities for the crew to prove themselves, or the entire structure collapses into resentment. The ship cannot just punish, it must also reward. And the rewards must feel real. This is where combat becomes essential. A Klingon warship without combat is a pressure vessel. The crew has no outlet. The rituals provide limited release, but they are not the same as actual battle. Actual battle allows the crew to prove their worth in a way that cannot be questioned. It provides the honor the system promises. It justifies the suffering. It validates the hierarchy. The ship needs war not just to fulfill its tactical role, but to maintain internal cohesion. Without external enemies, the crew turns inward. The contradictions become unbearable. The structure destabilizes. In the mid-2370s, the Klingon Empire launches an invasion of Cardassia based on flawed intelligence. The war is brutal. The justification is thin, but the war serves an internal function. It gives the fleet something to do. It gives the crews something to fight. It provides the honor opportunities the system requires to function. The Dominion War that follows serves a similar purpose. The fleet is mobilized. The crews are engaged. The honor system is fed. The ships remain stable because the external threat is real, and the victories are tangible. The simplest reading is that the Klingon military requires external conflict to prevent internal collapse. The system is not designed for peace. It is designed for war. The readiness culture, the honor competition, the exhaustion, the surveillance, all of it assumes a state of ongoing or imminent combat. Remove that assumption, and the mechanisms that maintain loyalty begin to fail. The ship is a weapon, but it is also a social experiment in sustained aggression. The experiment only works if the aggression has a target. And the state knows this. Around the middle of the 24th century, the Klingon Empire signs the Khitomer Accords with the Federation. The treaty establishes an alliance and reduces the likelihood of major conflict between the two powers. For the Federation, this is a diplomatic victory. For the Klingon military, it is a structural crisis. The fleet is designed for war with the Federation. Entire generations of warriors have been trained to see Starfleet as the enemy. The treaty removes that enemy. The system must adapt or fracture. The adaptation comes in the form of external adventurism. The Empire begins to expand its borders aggressively. It picks fights with minor powers. It pursues territorial disputes. It seeks out conflict wherever it can be justified. The fleet needs enemies, so the state provides them. The wars are smaller, the stakes are lower, but the function is the same. The crews are kept engaged. The honor system is maintained, the ships remain stable, but the adaptation reveals the underlying dependency. The Klingon warship cannot exist in peacetime without becoming a threat to the state itself. The system that produces loyal warriors in war produces dangerous, frustrated soldiers in peace. The Empire cannot demobilize without risking internal rebellion. It cannot maintain the fleet without giving it something to fight. The ship is a tool of external policy, but it is also a hostage to its own structure. The state must feed it conflict, or the conflict will turn inward. This is the hidden cost of the honor system. It is not self-regulating. It requires constant external pressure to function. The warrior is told that honor is internal, a personal quality measured by courage and integrity. But the system treats honor as a resource that must be rationed and distributed through controlled opportunities. The crew cannot generate honor on their own. They can only earn it through actions the state has approved. The ship does not celebrate independent virtue. It celebrates state-sanctioned violence, and that violence is always directed outward, until it cannot be. The role of the first officer aboard a Klingon warship is uniquely precarious. The first officer is second in command. They are responsible for crew discipline and operational efficiency. They are also the most likely candidate to replace the captain. This dual role creates a permanent tension. The first officer must be loyal enough to serve effectively, but ambitious enough to be a credible successor. If they are too loyal, they are seen as weak. If they are too ambitious, they are seen as a threat. The captain must trust them but also monitor them constantly. The first officer must demonstrate competence but not superiority. In Soldiers of the Empire, Commander Worf serves as first officer under General Martok. The dynamic is built on mutual respect, but it is also built on constant evaluation. Martok watches Worf. Worf watches Martok. The crew watches both. Every decision is scrutinized. Every hesitation is noted. The relationship works because both individuals understand the rules. But the rules also create a permanent state of low-level suspicion. The first officer is always one perceived betrayal away from losing their position or their life. This is how the system produces leadership. It does not train commanders in isolation. It trains them in public, under pressure, in an environment where failure is visible and immediate. The first officer is tested constantly. If they pass, they are promoted. If they fail, they are replaced. The process is brutal, but it ensures that the commanders who survive are competent, loyal, and capable of managing the same pressures they experienced as subordinates. The system produces leaders who can operate the structure because they were shaped by it. But it also produces leaders who are deeply risk-averse in specific ways. A Klingon commander will take extraordinary tactical risks in combat. They will charge into overwhelming odds. They will sacrifice their ship for a strategic goal. But they will not take political risks. They will not challenge the High Council. They will not question doctrine. The system rewards battlefield courage and punishes political deviation. The commander is brave in war and obedient in peace. This is not a contradiction. It is the design. The result is a military leadership class that is competent at executing state policy but incapable of reforming it. The commanders are warriors, not statesmen. They are tactical, not strategic. They can win battles, but they cannot prevent wars. They can manage crews, but they cannot transform the culture. The ship produces the leaders the Empire needs to maintain itself, not to improve itself. And the maintenance is expensive. Life aboard a Klingon warship is materially harsh. The food is minimal. Rations are functional, not enjoyable. Gag, ract, and blood wine appear frequently, but portion sizes are controlled. The crew is kept underfed enough to stay aggressive, but not so underfed that performance declines. Medical care is available, but not prioritized. Injuries are treated, but pain is expected to be endured. The ship's doctor is a functional role, not a prestigious one. Warriors are expected to recover quickly or die honorably. Chronic injuries are a mark of weakness. The system does not accommodate disability. This creates an environment where physical decline is both inevitable and dishonorable. A warrior who ages loses strength. Strength loss reduces status. Status loss reduces influence. The aging warrior is pushed toward early retirement or death in battle. The culture frames this as honorable sacrifice, but the mechanism is a forced exit. The ship cannot support warriors who can no longer contribute physically. The system requires constant turnover. The old are replaced by the young. The cycle continues. In Once More Unto the Breach from Deep Space Nine, the aged Klingon warrior corps seeks one final battle. He is no longer physically capable, but he is granted a command as a symbolic gesture. He dies in combat, fulfilling the cultural expectation. The episode frames this as tragic but noble. The deeper mechanism is that the system required his death. There was no place for him in the Empire once his strength faded. The ship is a young warrior's environment. It is not designed to honor the elderly. It is designed to exhaust them until they exit. This is one of the system's most brutal efficiencies. It does not carry dead weight. It does not maintain pensions or support structures for retired warriors. It pushes the aging and the injured toward death and frames that death as glorious. The cost is hidden because the culture celebrates it. The warrior dies in battle and is remembered in song. The alternative, slow decline and irrelevance, is erased from the narrative. The ship is optimized for the state's needs, not the warrior's, and the state benefits from the erasure. Privacy aboard a Klingon warship is nearly non-existent. Personal quarters are small, often shared. Conversations are overheard. Actions are visible. The crew lives in a panopticon where surveillance is not technological but social. Everyone watches everyone. Information spreads rapidly. Secrets are almost impossible to keep. This creates a culture where reputation is everything, and reputation is constantly negotiated through visible behavior. A crew member cannot hide weakness. If they are injured, the crew knows. If they are afraid, the crew knows. If they are disloyal, the crew knows. The lack of privacy eliminates the possibility of a private self. The warrior must perform strength at all times because there is no backstage. The ship is the stage. The crew is the audience. The performance never ends. This is exhausting in ways that are rarely discussed. The crew member cannot relax. They cannot admit doubt. They cannot seek help without risking status. The system produces warriors who are publicly strong and privately isolated. The bonds between crew members are functional, not intimate. Trust is tactical, not emotional. The ship discourages deep personal relationships because those relationships create private loyalties that might conflict with state loyalty. But the system also creates a compensatory structure. The crew bonds through shared suffering. The collective experience of hardship generates a form of solidarity that is not friendship but mutual recognition. The warriors do not need to like each other. They need to know that their peers understand the same pressures. This shared understanding creates a baseline cohesion that is enough to keep the ship functional. It is not warmth. It is not intimacy. But it is enough. The food rituals aboard Klingon ships serve a secondary function. Meals are communal. They are loud. They are competitive. Warriors insult each other. They boast. They challenge. The meal is not about nutrition. It is about reinforcing hierarchy and testing social bonds. A warrior who eats alone is suspect. A warrior who refuses to participate in the banter is weak. The ritual forces engagement. It prevents isolation. It keeps the crew visible to each other. In multiple episodes, we see Klingons share meals in a ritualized fashion. The food is often live or raw. The consumption is a demonstration of strength. The warrior who eats without hesitation proves toughness. The warrior who refuses or shows disgust loses standing. The meal becomes a test. The test is never optional. The crew watches. The crew judges. The system turns every moment into an opportunity for evaluation. This creates a life where there are no neutral actions. Everything is watched. Everything is interpreted. Everything feeds into the honor economy. The warrior cannot simply exist. They must constantly perform existence in ways the system recognizes as valid. The exhaustion is not just physical. It is existential. The ship does not allow rest from the self. The self is always on trial, and the trial is permanent. The Klingon warship's relationship to technology is revealing. Automation is minimized. Manual controls are preferred. Systems that could be operated by computer require crew input. This is framed as a cultural preference for direct engagement, but it also serves a structural function. Manual systems require crew. Crew requirements keep the ship fully staffed. Full staffing keeps warriors employed. Employment keeps warriors loyal. The inefficiency is deliberate. The ship is not optimized for technical performance. It is optimized for crew management. A Federation starship can be operated by a skeleton crew if necessary. The automation is sophisticated enough to handle routine tasks. A Klingon warship cannot. If the crew is reduced below a critical threshold, the ship becomes inoperable. This makes the crew essential, which gives them leverage, but it also makes them dependent. They cannot leave. They cannot be easily replaced. The ship and the crew are locked together. The dependence is mutual, but the power is not. The state controls assignment. The state controls promotion. The crew is essential, but they are not free. This is a different kind of control than the Federation uses. The Federation binds its officers through ideology and opportunity. Starfleet offers exploration, scientific advancement, and moral purpose. The Klingon Defense Force offers survival, status, and the possibility of honor. The difference is that Starfleet's offer is aspirational. The Klingon offer is transactional. The warrior serves because the alternatives are worse. The system does not need to inspire loyalty. It only needs to make disloyalty more dangerous than obedience. And disloyalty is extremely dangerous. Desertion from a Klingon warship is treated as the ultimate betrayal. The deserter is hunted. Their family is shamed. Their house is dishonored. The punishment is not just personal, it is collective. The system ensures that desertion does not just harm the individual, it harms everyone connected to them. This creates a deterrent structure where the warrior's sense of responsibility to family and house outweighs their personal desire to escape. The system weaponizes kinship. The warrior is bound not just by duty, but by the knowledge that their failure will contaminate others. In Sins of the Father from the Next Generation, Worf's family honor is called into question. The accusation is false, but the mechanism is real. Worf is forced to accept this commendation to prevent a civil war. His family is shamed. His brother is affected. The cost is not contained to Worf alone. The system uses familial bonds as leverage. The individual is never just an individual. They are a node in a network. The network is the point of control. This is how the system prevents mass desertion. A single warrior might be willing to abandon the ship if only their own life was at stake. But they cannot abandon the ship without destroying their family. The cost is too high. The system does not need to make service appealing. It only needs to make exit catastrophic. The warrior is trapped by bonds that are presented as honor but function as chains. The maintenance routines aboard a Klingon warship are constant. Systems degrade. Weapons require calibration. Hull plating needs repair. The work is manual, repetitive, and never-ending. The crew is assigned shifts. The shifts are long. The work is hard. But the work also serves a psychological function. It keeps the crew occupied. It prevents idleness. It reinforces the idea that the ship is always in a state of near-combat readiness. The maintenance is not just functional. It is ideological. The ship is always being prepared for the next battle, even when no battle is imminent. This is another exhaustion tactic. The crew is kept busy. They do not have time to organize. They do not have time to question. They do not have time to form alternative power structures. The system fills every hour with tasks that are just important enough to require attention, but not important enough to be fulfilling. The work is a grind. The grind is the point. And the grind is normalized through comparison. The crew is told that this is what strength looks like. The Federation is soft. The Romulans are cowardly. The Klingons endure. The narrative frames exhaustion as virtue. The crew learns to take pride in their suffering. They learn to view rest as weakness. The system does not need to force them to work. It trains them to force themselves. But the system also creates a release valve. Shore leave exists, but it is rare and short. When the crew is granted leave, they are expected to spend it in Klingon-controlled space. They drink. They fight. They engage in the same rituals they perform aboard the ship, but in a less controlled environment. The leave is not rest. It is a pressure release. The crew blows off steam and then returns to the ship, ready to comply again. The cycle continues. The warrior is never allowed to leave the system, even when they are technically off duty. Promotion aboard a Klingon warship is theoretically merit-based. The strongest, the most skilled, the most loyal rise. But merit is evaluated by superiors who have their own agendas. A warrior who is competent but politically inconvenient can be passed over. A warrior who is loyal but less skilled can be promoted. The system is not transparent. Decisions are made behind closed doors. The crew is told that promotion is earned, but the mechanism is often patronage. The commander promotes those who serve their interests. The system rewards loyalty to individuals, not competence in the abstract. This creates factions within the crew. Warriors align themselves with senior officers who can promote them. They compete with peers who serve the same patron. The ship becomes a political environment where alliances shift and rivalries are managed. The combat skills are necessary, but they are not sufficient. The warrior must also be a political operator. They must manage relationships, navigate rivalries, and position themselves for advancement. The system demands both warrior prowess and courtier skill. In the House of Quark from Deep Space Nine, the Klingon political system is shown to be deeply corrupt. Houses manipulate financial records. Leaders lie. The High Council is swayed by personal interest. The military reflects this culture. The ship is not a pure meritocracy. It is a microcosm of the Empire's political dysfunction. The warrior is told to value honor, but the system rewards cunning. The contradiction is managed through narrative. The Empire celebrates the myth of the honorable warrior while operating a patronage network. The warrior who succeeds is the warrior who understands both systems. They must perform honor in public and practice politics in private. The balance is delicate. The cost is constant vigilance. The reward is survival and advancement. The ship is not a refuge from politics. It is where politics are most intense because the stakes are life and death is always close. The medical facilities aboard a Klingon warship are functional but minimal. The sickbay is equipped to handle trauma, but not chronic care. The doctor is trained in combat medicine, not holistic health. The crew is expected to recover quickly. Pain is to be endured, not treated. Painkillers are available but discouraged. The warrior who requires extensive medical intervention is seen as weak. The system does not accommodate long-term disability. If a crew member cannot return to duty, they are invalided out. The ship does not carry passengers. This creates a culture where injury is a career-ending event if it is severe enough. A warrior who loses a limb, suffers brain damage, or becomes chronically ill is no longer useful to the ship. They are discharged. The Empire provides limited support for disabled veterans. The warrior is expected to die in battle, not to survive and require care. The system is optimized for turnover, not longevity. In Ethics from the Next Generation, Worf is paralyzed in an accident. He considers ritual suicide because Klingon culture views disability as dishonorable. The episode presents this as a personal choice, but the mechanism is cultural enforcement. The system does not support disabled warriors, it pushes them toward death. Worf's decision to live is framed as a victory, but it is also a deviation from cultural expectation. The ship would not have accommodated him. Starfleet did. This is one of the clearest contrasts between Klingon and Federation systems. The Federation invests in rehabilitation, accommodation, and long-term care. The Klingon Empire does not. The Klingon system is efficient in the short term. It maximizes current combat capability by eliminating non-contributors. But it also wastes the accumulated knowledge and experience of injured warriors. The system prioritizes immediate utility over institutional memory. The cost is long-term erosion of expertise. The question is whether the Empire recognizes this cost. The answer is that it does not need to. The Klingon military is not optimized for institutional learning. It is optimized for maintaining a specific culture. The culture requires sacrifice. The culture requires turnover. The culture requires visible proof that strength is valued above all else. Accommodating disability would contradict that proof. The system cannot change without undermining the narrative that justifies it. The ship is cruel, but the cruelty is structural, not incidental, and the structure is older than the ships themselves. The Klingon Empire's relationship to its own history is selective. Great victories are remembered, great warriors are celebrated, but defeats are erased or reinterpreted. The system does not learn from failure. It punishes failure and moves on. The ship reflects this pattern. When a mission fails, the crew is shamed. The failure is attributed to individual weakness, not systemic flaw. The structure is never questioned. The doctrine is never revised. The ship and the Empire repeat the same mistakes because the culture forbids acknowledging them as mistakes. In Star Trek VI, the Klingon moon praxis explodes due to overmining and poor safety standards. The disaster is environmental, economic, and political. The Empire's energy infrastructure collapses. But the response is not systemic reform. The response is a desperate attempt to maintain the military while the economy fails. The fleet is not reduced. The structure is not questioned. The Empire seeks external aid while continuing to prioritize military spending. The system cannot adapt because adaptation would require admitting failure. This is the deeper flaw. The Klingon system is rigid. It can expand. It can conquer. But it cannot reform. The ship is a microcosm of this rigidity. The crew is conditioned to obey. The officers are conditioned to enforce. The structure is conditioned to replicate itself. Change is framed as dishonor. Innovation is framed as weakness. The system perpetuates itself, even when perpetuation is self-destructive. The ship is not just a warship. It is a cultural preservation engine. It produces warriors who believe in the system because they were shaped by it. Those warriors go on to command ships, serve on the High Council, and enforce the same culture on the next generation. The cycle is self-sustaining. The ship is the mechanism that ensures the Empire remains Klingon, even at the cost of survival. But the mechanism is fragile. The final question is what happens when the system is placed under maximum stress. The Dominion War provides the test. The Klingon fleet is mobilized on a scale not seen in generations. Ships are deployed constantly. Casualties are high. Replacement crews are rushed through training. The system is operating at its limit. The mechanisms that maintain loyalty and discipline are stretched. The honor system is fed by constant combat. The exhaustion is normalized by the urgency of the war. The ship functions because the external threat is existential, but the war also reveals the system's dependency. Without the Dominion, the fleet would have turned inward. The warriors would have had no outlet. The honor economy would have collapsed. The ships would have become unstable. The Empire needed the war to justify its own structure. The war was a crisis, but it was also a relief. It gave the system what it required to function. When the war ends, the Empire faces the same problem it faced after Kitoma. The fleet is intact, the crews are intact, but the enemy is gone. The system must find a new threat or risk internal fracture. The ship cannot exist in peace. It is not designed for it. The warrior culture is not self-sustaining. It requires external conflict to remain coherent. The Klingon warship is not a product of warrior culture. Warrior culture is a product of the ship. The vessel, the structure, the routines, the surveillance, the exhaustion, all of it is designed to produce a specific type of person. That person is loyal, aggressive, obedient, and unable to imagine an alternative. The system does not celebrate the warrior. It manufactures the warrior by eliminating every other possibility. Life aboard a Klingon warship is regulated, observed, and psychologically compressed. Privacy is eliminated, autonomy is suppressed, dissent is ritualized and controlled. The crew is kept exhausted, underfed, and in constant competition. They are told they are free warriors pursuing glory. They are actually components in a state apparatus designed to prevent reform and maintain external aggression. Honor is not a value. It is a currency distributed by the state to ensure compliance. The ship is not a meritocracy. It is a loyalty production facility. The deeper truth is that the Klingon Empire cannot afford to let its warriors rest. Rest allows thought. Thought allows doubt. Doubt allows change. The ship is designed to prevent rest. It keeps the crew in motion, in conflict, in a permanent state of readiness that is also a permanent state of control. The system works because the crew has been conditioned to believe that the exhaustion is glory and the control is freedom. And that conditioning is the most successful weapon the Empire has ever built.